What made you trust him so implicitly, and why him? Why did you choose him? Like, how did you get to that stage in order to choose the business partner?
That's a great question, and not one that I've necessarily ever broken down into its component parts. You know, how do you know when to trust someone? It's a little bit like the talk you had yesterday about trust. Remember that conversation? And how do you know when to trust someone? And maybe it's a gut feel at some level. But I would say with Rob, what was it? Well, look, it was some of those elements that came up yesterday around trust, which was he was excellent without any without any doubts. He was superb at what he did. So he was young. He was hungry. He had an incredible work ethic. He did what he said he was going to do. And most importantly, and this was the point that was also made yesterday, I had a very strong sense of purpose about how the industry needed to change and what needed to happen. And he bought into that. And he was like a soulmate. So, you know, I am 15 years older than Rob. I think he was 27 and I was 42. Maybe even before that. When I hired him, he was like 24 and I think I was like 39. But I just had my 40th birthday when I met him. And I had this sense of purpose, but that's the point about values in common. It just transcends age, it transcends race, transcends everything. We had the same values, we believed the same thing, and we were out on a mission to change the world, basically. We said, you know what, we're going to change the world, and we're going to do it together. And then the trust comes from that. So that's what I would say. It's probably more complex than that, but yeah.
Wow. In terms of imposter syndrome, have you ever experienced it, and how have you dealt with that in your dealings?
Have I ever experienced it? Yeah. So I arrived, many times, and I arrived at Merrill Lynch in 2000. I'd been brought in. I worked at NatWest Capital Markets, so I was quite an experienced investment banker at this point, but I was really quite niche in my area. And I arrived at Merrill Lynch, and anyway, I got pulled into this conversation with all the great and the good were in the room. Like 10 people, and they brought me in, and I was supposed to be the guy who knew about, I can't remember what it was something I was supposed to know about, and I knew literally nothing about this subject. And I realized within about 5 minutes of getting in this room, the room was packed, it was a hot afternoon, couldn't breathe, and they were going around the room, and they said, well, we've got this really important question, and we just wondered, there's this new guy who's just joined, Dawid, and Dawid, maybe you can give us your view on what you think the impact is on the tax angle combined with the rise in interest rates, and whether or not you think, anyway, I didn't even understand the question. Like everyone's looking at me. I literally just beat a sweat down the back. And I'd been in the job for like 2 weeks. I was like, oh, I'm in so much trouble here. Anyway, I had no clue. It was obvious I had no clue. I said something or other. I went hot and cold. I left the room. I was almost sort of resigning and going back to my old job and going back. It was a disaster. But the fact is, look, eventually you find your feet. Eventually you know what you're good at. Eventually, they asked me the wrong question. It would be like asking me a question about, veterinary science. I mean, it was the wrong guy to ask. But I did know my stuff on some other stuff. And you have to become very, very good at your stuff. Whatever your thing is, you need to know it. And people will, they'll realize that you know your stuff. It takes time. It takes time. I mean, I've now been working 33 years, and I've had imposter syndrome, i.e., imposter syndrome, let's define it. It's when you suddenly think, I'm out of my depth. Like, I'm seriously out of my depth here. And have I felt that? many, many times. But, part of it is handling it. Part of it is, by the way, part of it is saying, I don't know the answer. That's part of that thing. I don't know the answer. Try and bluff it. You're going to find yourself in a world of pain. But don't bluff it. Say you don't know the answer. If you should know it, go find it. Come back. Be better next time. Come into the room with that insight. Know it. It's like Tommy Luba was saying yesterday. Come with some insight. Come with stuff. Bring it into the. Bring it. People will know. This person knows what they're talking about.
What's your biggest life lesson that you would share or that you'd like to impart with people?
My biggest life lesson. Whew. My biggest life lesson, by which I suppose I mean I was not born with this, and anyone who knows me will know this. I think my biggest life lesson probably is that I've had to learn to be vulnerable. It's a big, big thing. I've had to learn to be vulnerable. And that means I've had to learn that I'm not always right, that when I'm wrong, it's okay to say sorry. In fact, you have to say sorry. You have to communicate, that you have to have hard conversations. I'm not great at it, to be honest with you. I'm still working on it. But my biggest life lesson is, for me anyway, I mean, all those things I talked about, Frank, those are all my lessons. These are all stuff I've had to learn. It's not been easy. But I would say, yeah, probably my biggest life lesson is vulnerability actually is power. That's when people trust you. This is about trust, right? People trust you when you get vulnerable. People trust you when they can see that you are emotionally connected to the situation. You know, be compassionate, be kind, be vulnerable. These are all the things that earn you trust. You can't fake this stuff. Either you are compassionate and or you're not. You can't make it up. So I would say, yeah, vulnerability and learning that and embracing it and working on it for me, I would say, yeah.
If you're a uni student, or let's say you've just been made redundant, how would you react? It's two different scenarios, but you're both looking to make key steps. Like, how would you advise these people to take their next steps?
If what? If they've been made redundant?
Okay, firstly, if you're a university student and you're about to come into this world where the world's about to change, how do you handle that situation? And then secondly, if you've been made redundant, how do you handle that?
Okay, two different questions. So let's start first with university student. You have to get a good degree, and that means you've got to work. And I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of students have, they're smart people, but they go to university really to have a great time. And if they get a good degree, well, then that's nice, and it's a nice cherry on the cake. But actually, that's not the whole central purpose of getting there. So go make friends, have a good time, and learn about life, all of which is good stuff that you need to do. But it's not till you come out and you look back that you realize that those are almost the three most important years of your life. You need to get up. Don't get up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Get up at 7 o'clock. I'm not going to kill you. Just get up, work, discover your work ethic at uni. I mean, I didn't do a great job of work. I didn't work really until I got into the main system and found my groove. I always struggled with academics. I wasn't particularly, I found it hard to focus, very easily distracted. I'm a curious guy. I'm always curious about everything. My wife is like, why are you watching that? I'm like, it's interesting. And she's like, it's not interesting. I'm like, yeah, I find everything interesting. And so, it's hard to study when you find literally everything interesting, especially now with the internet, where literally you've got 10 tabs open, you just move around everything, right? You have to learn to work. And if you do that, it will come good eventually. It will come good. If you just be made redundant, I got made redundant twice. And, I had a very big life lesson during the first time I got made redundant. It was very early. I just started working about 6 months, and I got made redundant. They moved the office to Cardiff, and the office shut down. I had no income. And my wife was a trainee lawyer. She was earning like £12,000 a year. We had to pay our rent, so I had no money from that. I remember one day waking up, and I was at home. I had no job, so I was at home. I lived in a small basement flat down somewhere in South London. And I wanted some breakfast. So I went, and there was like the last little bit of cornflakes, put it in the bowl, went to the fridge. There was no milk. I was like, okay, I gotta go buy some milk. There's a little newsagent on the corner. Then I realized I had no money. So I looked around, I had like 38p. I took 38p and I went to the newsagent. I got in there and I was 39p. I'm like, I've only got 38. And the guy is like, I need 39. And so I went home with my 38p. And I remember eating that bowl of cereal dry. I might put some warm water on it or something. I remember thinking to myself, man, you don't have enough money to buy a pint of milk. I remember my wife coming home and saying, how was your day? And I'm like, well, this is a big life lesson, right? Because that wakes you up big time. So I've been made redundant and I've been there. The fact is you have to get your head down and you have to just keep at it. Grit and resilience. I didn't even put it in because I ran out of time, but grit and resilience, these are two things which, if you've got grit, which is that you just keep going, you just keep the interviews going. And if you get rejected 100 times, you do it 101 times. You get rejected 300 times, you go 301 times. Make good contacts. Get in touch with people. There are people out there who want to help. It's not like me, I want to help people. I can't help everybody, and I can't, but I can do something. Get in touch. There are a lot of us out there who would love to help. It could be Justin, could be Gavin, could be Marissa, could be Rachel. There's a whole bunch of us basically in the Talk About Black space. We'd love to put you, and there's more people besides. We'd love to put you in touch with some of those people and try to help. You're made redundant, especially in this time. It's tough. This is a terrible time. It's difficult, especially you got a mortgage and you got, wife and kids, and it's very difficult. So I empathize, I sympathize, and this is where we have to come together as a community. There are other communities. I think that the Jewish community, they do this stuff very well. They come together as a community. They support each other. And I think we could learn a lot from other communities, the Asian communities, they just come together and help. And we need to do more of that. So yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Okay. How did you deal with past traumas in your life, and how did you find your purpose early in your career?
So 2 questions again. What was the first one? How did I deal with
past traumas in your life?
Yeah, how do you deal with past traumas? And trauma is a terrible thing, right? I mean, I talk to people, and one of the things we do with Spellbound, which is this coaching people to talk, is part of my aim is to help you tell your story. So at the end of the sessions, I try to get people to tell their story, and you tell it. And I say, please be vulnerable. Don't come and I don't want to be bored, and I don't want to switch off. I want to know your story. And almost always in that story, especially when I do it in prisons, there's a trauma in there somewhere. There's a real trauma, and these things affect you for decades to come. Sometimes you'll talk to someone and they'll say, "Listen," I talked to a guy in prison actually a few months ago, and he had a trauma when he was 7 years old in school with a teacher who laughed at him, and his friends laughed at him when he couldn't read, and he went out. He never went back to school again. I think he was 11. He never went back to school. Joined a gang, and everything kind of unraveled from there. These traumas have a way of affecting us and just throwing us off track for decades to come. For me, I've had trauma in my life. Yeah, I've had some difficult things happen. Depends how you define trauma. Last year, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I had an operation, and I'm better. It'll be a year in July.
Wow.
And that was not easy. When you get given a diagnosis like that, it just stops you in your tracks. I mean, there's nobody who gets given a diagnosis of, I've got your results and I'm sorry you got cancer. When you hear that, I'm not old. I'm in my mid-50s, so that knocks you, right? How do you cope with it? Well, for me, I have a very strong Christian faith, and so for me, I very much believe I'm in the hands of God, and I believe that what happens, He knows all about it, and the future is already my future is mapped out, and when it's my time, it's my time. So for me, my faith has been a huge part of that whole thing. My family, my wife, been married for over 31 years. That stuff is not all straightforward. Don't get me wrong. I mean, marriage is not easy, and anyone who tells you it is probably not telling you the truth. But you got to find a way to make it work. And not everybody can. But look, yeah, dealing with trauma is different for everybody, and I can't prescribe for everyone. But it's about having your values. It's about living by them. It's about keeping your head. It's about keeping calm. It's about understanding that there's a way through this. I will get through this, no matter what it is. You will get through it, right? You just got to understand what the machinery and the mechanism is for doing that. So how have you dealt with traumas? And then there was another question.
The sub question was, and how did you find your purpose early in your career?
Hey, how do you find your purpose? Look, your purpose for me, it came, I'm a passionate guy. I get involved in things very, very deeply. And yeah, it took time. It took many years, but eventually I got into a place where my purpose was helping my industry to do things better. So it was really the pensions industry, and that was just my thing. That was my area, and I was quite innovative in that area. So I came up with some ways of helping pension funds. And I was like, it's never going to work in this bank, just because the bank was too far from the pension fund. I need to be a consultant. So I had to become a consultant. Then I could help the pension funds. Then I could help, transform the way our industry did things. And then slowly out of that comes a purpose. And then the more you do that, the more you understand, well, I did that then. Maybe I can do something else. Maybe now, maybe I can go into a prison and I can help. By the way, just throw yourself into stuff. Go to a prison and go and talk to guys who are doing 25 years. Go and talk to them, help them in their space. Imagine how it must be right now. You're allowed out now half an hour a day because of COVID. Half an hour, 30 minutes a day from a cell that's really the size, just hardly not big enough to put a bed in. Okay, right now you can't go, but as soon as the lockdown finishes, you're gonna get in there and start to help young kids. Then you find your purpose. You're like, yeah. I got more. In fact, I went to a prison last year, and a lot of stuff happened last year. But I'll tell you what, I went to a prison last year, and we did one of these things where helping you find your voice and helping to speak. It was the best day in the last several years. And you wouldn't have thought it, right? Going to a prison and and working with 25 guys who are doing life sentences. How is that going to? It is. Why? Because you're helping people to find their purpose, and you're helping people to find their voice. You just find in all of this, your purpose slowly comes up. It's not like someone comes and hands you on a piece of paper. That's how it happens.
Wow. Thank you for your vulnerability. That is much appreciated. And another last two questions. When did you first have that realization that you wanted to be a CEO, and what was it like in terms of feeling that fear? Like, how fearful were you? Because obviously societal pressures make it very difficult for that to happen.
Yeah, well, to be fair, to become a CEO, there was only two of us in the company to start with, and Rob was my co-CEO. So there was only two of us, and we hired a couple of other guys. Actually, one was a fabulous lady called Angela, and she was our CTO. Our COO, and a guy called Stuart Dillon, who was also fabulous, and he was our CTO. Like, this is four of us, and so you start like that, and then it kind of slowly built up. But there's no doubt that there's a fear to, as you rise, you get this imposter syndrome. It was what we were hearing about yesterday, which is where you're like, can I really do this job? But you learn on the job. You learn what your skills are. And as long as you have these values and these principles, and a lot of what Tommy Lube was saying yesterday kind of comes into play. Let people know that when you say what you say, that you're going to do what you said you were going to do, or that they can come to you and that they can trust you. Now, you might be tough, but you're fair. And that you'll always tell them what they need to know. And then slowly, the job of being a CEO, really, someone told me the job of being a CEO is to do four things. That's all. There's four things. If you want to do these four things, you should be the CEO, basically, if you can do them well. One is you need to hire the right people, which is not always easy to do. You need to put them in the right roles. And you want to get them to do the right things the right way. They're not, those four things are different. So right people, right roles, right things, right way. That's basically what you're doing as a CEO. And you can learn to do that stuff. You can get, you get coaching, get executive coaching, have a mentor. Mentor's huge. Get someone to coach you, to mentor you. I'm using mentor and coach all kind of in the same, to me, the same. They're not quite the same thing, but get someone that you can go to, you can talk to, and just say, look, this is where I struggle. These are my weaknesses. This is what I'm good at. What do you think about this situation? Do it regularly. See them once a month. And slowly, even a CEO, our CEOs of our companies, Mallow Street and Reddington, both the companies that Rob and I founded, they both have, have a coach, someone they go to, they talk to on a regular basis. Very, very important.
And final question is, where's the cheese moving you at this moment in time?
Very good question. Very perceptive. Look, my cheese is moving left. I'm stuck at home, just kind of working on my stuff. So we've got one of our companies, which is Mallow Street. It's an in-person gig, and so we're all about it's about events. It's about, we convene, we bring people together in our industry to deal with the big issues that are affecting pensions and getting people their pensions paid on time. So it's all about bringing asset managers and pension fund trustees, lawyers, actuaries, the whole lot, bringing them all together. And we bring them all together for these big conversations in person. That's just gone, literally gone. I was like, we can't do that anymore. And the way I see it, I say, look, you know what? It's like skiing. You start at the top of the mountain, and when you ski down the mountain and you're at the bottom. Now suddenly someone takes your skis away. And says, and you go, well, now what am I going to do? Say, well, here's a snowboard. Same mountain, same snow, same chance of hurting yourself, a bit more maybe in the beginning, but hey, same wind in your hair, and at the bottom of the mountain, yeah, you get to, you have to drink the hot red wine or whatever your tipple is in the après ski. You're coming down the mountain a different way, and that's what we're trying to figure out. So for me right now, I spend a lot of time trying to pivot. I'm pivoting the business with the CEO. So, I'm on the board, but we're having a lot of conversations. How do you pivot suddenly? When someone suddenly takes your skis away, where's your snowboard? And you got to move fast, right? There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune, omitted all the voyage of their life, is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. That is what's happening right now. Those are my cheeses.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. If people wanted to get in contact with you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I put on the back here. Can you see that? I'm not sure if you can even see that.
Let me shift the screen a bit.
There you go. So that's my LinkedIn, and just maybe put a note in there about the event, and I'll happily connect. I'm very happy to connect with people. That's me on Twitter. Maybe follow me on Twitter. That's always cool. Follow me on Instagram. And look, I almost put my phone number on there. I was like, you know what? Here's my phone number. Just call me or WhatsApp me. But I was like, no, that's crazy. But no, seriously, get in touch. I love to be in touch with people. And if there's anything that I can do to help, not promising I can, right? There's hundreds of people on here, but yeah, I mean, my biggest dream is to see people who are people of color, people who are black, making it, and for that we've got to come together. If we all figure, if one person figures this stuff out around, where the cheese is moving to, not being a woman horse race, it's kind of interesting. But imagine if every single person watching this managed to put all that stuff into play, and not just what I've been talking about, but what you've heard over the last 3 days. I need to change the game, and the whole game changes, right? Because now you've got a community. Now you're really going to see people climbing the mountain, getting to the top, big, hairy, audacious goals, senses of purpose, all that kind of stuff. So I'm hugely positive about this. Let's see if we can do this stuff together, make it work. If you're interested in doing Spellbound, and we can do some of that, Dennis, we'll have a conversation, see if we can put that together. But I'd love to get involved with that as well.
Yeah, I've literally just updated the survey to add that as a question for anyone that's interested.
Yeah.
And so we can take it on from there.
Let's do it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time. This is the end of the 3-day conference. It's been an absolute pleasure pulling this all together. It's been lots of conversations, lots of insight, lots of interactivity from you guys as well. I've really appreciated the feedback. And just a couple of notes. I want to say thank you to Talk About Black for all of the help you've given, all of the success, all of the conversations. It really does mean a lot to have that support when pulling this all together. I'd like to thank all the people that have come, supported, given their time, given their questions. It really is much appreciated. 2 quick points. Again, social media. Please. If you've enjoyed this, please put it on social media. It helps me build the case so that when I go to companies, I can actually do certain things. Like, as much as this is free, there's obviously a time cost. And so if you can help me, that would be even better. I mean, I can obviously get more people involved and we can take it on further. And then lastly, as I said, when it comes to recordings and slides, if you want access to that, you have to complete the feedback form. And the feedback form is coming to your inbox, and it's got all of the questions from the different sessions. And if you want to get involved with Spellbound, if you want to get certain recordings, certain slides, it's all in there. It's all going to be tracked so that I know exactly where I'm going to be pinging off all the different pieces of information.